inflation is about to hit 6%. That's the highest rate since the early 90s, when the Conservatives have been in power for over a decade. That fears about inflation were unfounded. But working people across the country are starting the new year facing rising bills and ballooning prices. So how did he get it so wrong? Millions of British workers now face a further pay cut, and his Chancellor is handing them a tax hike.
How can Labour claim there's plenty of housing while pushing to build 1.5 million new homes? It's a question that's baffled many, and Jeremy Clarkson wasn't about to let it slide. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video, and in a heated exchange that's got everyone talking, Clarkson cornered Angela Rayner with hard facts and figures, but her responses left more questions than answers. What did Rayner say that had Clarkson fuming, and why are people calling it a total disaster for Labour? Labour's housing strategy is a maze of contradictions, leaving many scratching their heads. On one hand, Angela Rayner confidently claims there's plenty of housing available. On the other, Labour's pushing for an ambitious plan to build 1.5 million new homes. It's a paradox that Jeremy Clarkson wasn't about to let slide.
A Labour government builds council houses. She gets the keys to her first home to stability. Labour is the party of equality, of the Equality Act, of equal pay, and of Sure Start. Will make work more family friendly, crack down on unfair pay, and improve access to justice for those discriminated against at work.
Clarkson, known for his no-nonsense approach, dug into the numbers. The reality paints a starkly different picture from Rayner's rosy assertions. Nearly every Labour council in England has raised red flags, stating that Labour's housing targets are either impossible to achieve or unrealistic. It's not just a matter of opinion, it's a chorus of local authorities sounding the alarm. But the inconsistencies don't stop there. When pressed about the growing number of immigrants being housed in properties originally intended for the homeless, Rayner stumbled. Her responses were a mix of deflection and vague promises, leaving viewers frustrated and confused. How can Labour claim to have a handle on the housing crisis when they can't even keep their story straight? The interview quickly turned into a masterclass in political evasion. Rayner, caught between Labour's conflicting narratives, struggled to provide concrete solutions. Her inability to reconcile Labour's housing strategy with the realities on the ground left her looking unprepared and out of touch.
We'll know somebody at the moment who is trapped either in rented accommodation or they're in, substandard accommodation or they're in temporary accommodation because we don't have the social housing we need in this country.
Well, yes, you say you want decent homes for everybody, but you're the one that decided that Labour Lords should vote against the government's nutrient neutrality plans, which they claim would have seen 100,000 new homes built.
To get around the table to make that happen, we put an amendment down which could have delivered on the programme. The government weren't listening. We don't believe that you have to wreck our environment to deliver the homes. We can do both of those things.
Clarkson, sensing blood in the water, pressed harder. He argued that Labour's plan to build 1.5 million new homes is disconnected from reality. With the current economic climate and the construction industry facing its own set of challenges, how does Labour expect to deliver on this promise? As the interview progressed, a fundamental question emerged. How does Labour plan to balance the housing needs of immigrants with those of local communities already struggling to find affordable homes? Rayner's inability to provide a clear answer only deepened the sense that Labour's housing policy is built on shaky ground. The exchange left viewers with more questions than answers. If Labour can't effectively address the housing crisis while managing immigration, what does that say about their overall competence? The contradiction between Rayner's statements and Labour's own figures raises serious doubts about their ability to tackle one of the most pressing issues facing the UK today. But as shocking as these revelations are, they're just the beginning. The housing crisis is merely the tip of an iceberg of inconsistencies in Labour's policies. What other contradictions are lurking beneath the surface? If you thought Labour's housing policy was a mess, wait until you see how it intersects with their immigration strategy. The connection between these two issues isn't just important, it's explosive, and it's about to change everything you thought you knew about Labour's plans for the UK. Since Labour took office, a staggering 20,000 new immigrants have arrived in the UK.
Well, one of the challenges we face because of the Conservatives crashed the economy and the situation we're going to inherit is that we won't be able to reverse everything that the Conservatives have done over the last 13 years. The house building that I'm proposing at the start of conference that we'll be announcing more this week is about actually giving people secure futures and making sure that we can tackle things like child poverty. But we've had 13 years of Conservative failure, a crashed economy, so we're going to inherit a very difficult programme if we were lucky enough to win the next general election, and therefore we're realistic about what we're able to achieve, but we will change Britain for the better.
The burning question on everyone's mind is simple. Where are all these people living? The answer reveals a tangled web of contradictions that goes to the heart of Labour's policy failures. Labour's approach to balancing immigrant and local housing needs is nothing short of baffling. On one hand, they claim there's plenty of housing available. On the other, they're pushing for 1.5 million new homes. But here's where it gets really interesting. Reports are surfacing of homes lying empty while asylum seekers are being housed in hotels at taxpayer expense. It's a situation that's leaving many Brits scratching their heads and reaching for their wallet. The impact on local communities can't be overstated. Councils across England are raising red flags, warning that Labour's housing targets are either unrealistic or downright impossible to achieve. It's not just a matter of numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about real people struggling to find affordable homes in their own communities. But here's the kicker. When pressed on these issues, Labour's responses have been less than satisfactory. Angela Rayner's recent interview performance is a prime example. When confronted with hard facts about immigrant housing allocation, she stumbled and deflected, unable to provide clear answers. It's left many wondering, does Labour truly understand the housing crisis faced by the average Brit? This confusion isn't just embarrassing for Labour, it's potentially devastating for their overall housing strategy. How can they claim to have a handle on the housing crisis when they can't even keep their story straight on immigration? The fundamental flaws in their approach are becoming impossible to ignore. The real cost of Labour's contradictions is becoming clearer by the day. It's not just about empty homes or hotel bills. It's about a party that seems increasingly out of touch with the realities on the ground. As we dig deeper into Labour's policies, one thing becomes crystal clear. The housing crisis and immigration issues are two sides of the same coin, and Labour's failure to address them coherently is a ticking time bomb for the UK's future. Labour's housing strategy is a house of cards, built on shaky foundations of contradictions and unrealistic promises. Their failure to address the real issues, balancing local needs with immigration pressures, training British workers, and investing in infrastructure, leaves the UK teetering on the brink of a housing crisis. As voters, we can't afford to take politicians at their word anymore. It's time to dig deeper, ask tougher questions, and demand clear, actionable plans. The next time a Labour MP claims there's plenty of housing while simultaneously pushing for millions of new builds, we need to call out these inconsistencies. In these challenging times, the UK desperately needs transparent, coherent policies. Labour's current approach falls woefully short. We deserve better than vague promises and evasive answers. It's up to us to hold our leaders accountable and push for real solutions to the housing and immigration challenges facing our nation.